Hello and welcome back to the Villa Villa podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, it's our second Transfer Rumour Mill season podcast episode of the winter window. I know you're gassed, but how you doing, man?
Hi guys, Dan Wiseman here. Just wanted to let you know that at the end of the podcast we saw that Lovre Kalinic has left the club on a 6-month loan deal to his hometown club of Hajduk Split. We didn't know this at the start of the podcast, but what that means is it does open one spot in the squad for one of these next two transfer rumours to maybe come in. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Bro, I love it. The reception on the last one was just great. And you guys and a load of new people too. So if you're checking out this one and you're not subscribed to the channel, welcome. This place is a great place to be. Hit that subscribe button for a whole load of fun. You finally found your way to the best Aston Villa podcast. It took you some time, but we appreciate you getting here.
Absolutely.
And doing what we do best, mate. We love talking about the Villa, but whenever we get these chances to cast our net a little bit further into the wider footballing oceans, we've got a couple of players here today, which again, we do have to give this little public service announcement, don't we, mate? This little warning that there haven't actually been too many concrete links with these players. These are just players that you're seeing a lot of. That may have been linked to the Villa once, twice in the past, but it's mainly because we pick out players who aren't in a great situation, might be wanting out, and we pick out the ones that we think would be a good fit of Villa, and we discuss them for you. So we're not ITK, as Dan says many times.
We're doing the scouts' jobs, Dan. That is what we're doing here, essentially.
We're just here
listen to the podcast
to you.
On that, I've got to say, Dan, I don't think I mentioned it the other day, but when I went to collect my press accreditation at Villa Park after I forgot my bag, like the knobhead I am, the bloke, he was like, "What's your name?" I was like, Dan Morgan. And he goes, "Oh, I saw your tweet earlier." I was like, "What?" Like, I was really took back. So if you're listening to this podcast for whatever reason, I'm awfully sorry. I don't remember your name, mate, but you were very kind. You were very helpful as well. And if I was a bit sort of shy or whatever, it just really took me back. That was really weird. That's not like a fan encounter or anything. I think he just said he saw my tweet about coming to the game. So yeah, shout out to you, man. But on to the transfers, Dan. As you guys have seen, first of all, as well, I'd like to preface this: if you've watched the Palace preview podcast, and if you've watched the Renato Sanchez podcast, or if you've watched this podcast and thought, Dan is wearing the same hat and hoodie all the time. These aren't recorded on the same day. This is just what I wear when I have to leave work. And we've been recording these after work. So that's me. I'm not a tramp, I promise. These aren't all done on the same day. Albeit, I think we may get 2 transfer rumours done today. So if you see this outfit again, please forgive me. You don't want to see my hair, what's underneath this hat. But the first player, Dan, again, we're going to start off here where I think there's definitely been more talk about this player. Is a player that we know very well, a player that we've been linked with before, one of England's, dare I say it, most technically gifted players, I would say, Dan, and I think that's fair to say as well.
Absolutely.
Dele Alli, a player who we were linked with back in the Tim Sherwood days. He tried to sign him in his first January window. What a signing that would have been, by the way. Could you imagine a young Ali and Grealish in the same team for Villa, Dan? I mean... Jeez, that is what you want to see. That is some serious ballers. But Dele Alli, of course, I don't need to go too much in depth as we like to do here, Dan. Of course, we're gonna dig deep, but you guys know what Dele Alli is about, just like Jesse Lingard, and you let us know you really didn't want Jesse Lingard. So let us know what you think about Dele Alli in the comments. But he is a player who I think the All or Nothing Tottenham Hotspur documentary didn't paint in the greatest of lights. He's a player who I still hold in high regard. Sorry, he's again, as I just said, one of England's most technically gifted footballers. His motivation is certainly questionable, which I think is fair, especially after seeing the documentary. But then again, you have to approach these things in an objective manner and appreciate that. What you are seeing what the editor and what the producer wants you to see. I don't doubt that Dele Alli is not the hardest worker. I think Jose's even come out and said that, but he's undoubtedly a technically gifted player. And again, he fits that same profile as Jesse Lingard does, as Ross Barkley does at Aston Villa, Dan. So when the links came, I wasn't necessarily surprised. Very cautiously optimistic, and as we spoke about off air, Dan, you could see this. I mean, if it was a permanent transfer, costing Villa anywhere between 25 to 35 million pounds, which is A lot of money it is. You see Ollie Watkins has joined for 33, and you're looking at that's a player out of the Championship. So maybe you could. There's an argument for it being good value. He's a Premier League player. Played in the Champions League final. He's
English as well. There's the
exactly.
English premium.
There's a premium there. There is. We can't hide that. I just want for those of you who may have forgotten, or again, as I've said, had your perceptions somewhat altered by Dele Alli. We've got to run a few numbers by you, and of course, the eye test always counts, as a few people in the comments have rightly pointed out. For MK Dons in the 2014-2015 season, the season in which was his penultimate, his final season, for the MK Dons, he scored 16 goals and 9 assists in League One, and they came second, so they got promoted that year, which is absolutely mental. Villa again, we were linked with this guy, and it would have been amazing to have signed him. And Ali took like a duck to water in the Premier League. He really does. He scored some absolute screamers in his first season at Tottenham as well. 10 goals, 9 assists, has an XG of 0.03 per 90, which is absolutely massive, and an XA of 0.03, which is again just wow, that's incredible. He then went on he improved the next season as well, which is again remarkable. You would think how could his numbers possibly get better, Dan? Well, 18 goals, 7 assists, one of which was a penalty. Again, they're just crazy numbers when you consider the position he played in that team. He is he was a number 10 from Mauricio Pochettino. That there was always a focus on an essential player when you're playing with inverted wingers, I think, and how narrow Spurs played. He was the focal point that I think I see Kane as for the team now. He is kind of morphed into this Zidane-esque figure for Tottenham, hasn't he, Dan? And is vital in not only in scoring goals but in creating goals. And Ali was very much the spearhead for that, the chance creation aspect of in the early days of the Pochettino era. Again, things have fallen off, but I mean, looking at the stats on paper, certainly his worst season by numbers was the 2018-2019 season, by which 5 goals, 3 assists. And again, I don't think we'd complain if we had a player contributing with that in the midfield. I think we have goals fairly evenly shared around the team. So I think when you're looking at that as potentially his worst season in recent years, in terms of goals and assists output, Dan, I mean, he certainly is by no means any worse than what we have at the club at the moment. So again, I'm not being cynical here whatsoever. Last season as well, I mean, even when Jose came in, he was a very inspired performance against West Ham in that big win for Jose in one of his I think it was his first away game. That one
was his first game, yeah.
With that beautiful flick, Dan, from the when the ball looked like it was dead certain to go out. What an assist that was! But even last season, 8 goals, 4 assists. Overall, his XG from his 9 seasons within professional football, 0.36. I'm reading the wrong numbers here. I can't believe I'm doing this. His XG is 0.29 per 90 with an XA of 0.16, which is an impressive output per 90 minutes.
Yeah, very much so.
I would argue. And of course,
so.
which betters Jesse Lingard, who we spoke about in the last podcast. Again, this is a transfer where as you said off air, Dan, you see this either being like a 6-month loan with the view of the Euros are coming up soon. He's going to look to try and get in that squad, which, mate, first of all, we've already got two number 10s in this side who are gunning for an England spot, so good luck. But second of all, again, it could be a permanent deal. I think that would probably be writings on the wall in terms of Ross Barkley. Dan, what are you thinking about this one? Because again, as I say, if you'd have asked me this 5 years ago, I'm screaming we need to sign this player from MK Dons. But I don't know. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want Dele Alli because I'm not stupid. But does he fit in, Dan? Does he fit? He fits the profile. I just don't know whether he has a place in the squad.
Well, this is the thing, mate. That's the all important thing. And I think what you have to consider with Villa, and I spoke briefly about this when we talked about Jesse Lingard, but it's important to reinforce it now. I think with the emphasis that the club is putting on the academy at the moment, you need to provide a clear pathway to the first team.
Yeah.
And so when you've got the likes of JJ, who are finally coming into the fore, getting those Premier League starts like he did against Wolves, he's becoming a pretty regular face in the matchday squad now as Jacob Ramsey. if you then went and blocked his path off to becoming a starter with another Dele Alli, and he's already got a Grealish, a Ross Barkley, even a McGinn, a Horahan, like those kind of players operating in that role, then it really sets a tone that, for the what does it say for JJ and for the kids that are coming through in that position, that even you can get within touching distance like JJ has, and they just go and sign a £30 million Dele Alli who's desperate to play for England, and completely blocks that off. You have to consider these things. I'm not going to say that I don't want Dele Alli, but what I'm trying to say is, I think unfortunately it's a position whereby we just have too many players, and Dele Alli needs this move for the Euros, as you said. The Sunday Telegraph are reporting today, on the day of recording, that he will be granted a move out of Tottenham in January, which is rare, to see a player of that stature leave a club. Out of his, the 5 years of service he's given to Spurs, which, if that's true, that's a nice gesture. But he needs that for the Euros. He's played for Spurs this season and has played all right. He's only got 74 minutes of Premier League football this year, but in the Europa League, cast your mind back to a 4-0 win over Ludogorets, where Harry Winks scored that ridiculous goal, looking like nearly the halfway line.
Only 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
And in that game, he played really well. Mourinho came out in his presser and praised Dele Alli for being a good team player and stuff. So, he has had his moments this season. We all know what he's capable of, but I just worry about the impact of trying to find him, because he's not going to want to leave and be a bit part player. He's going to want to leave and play week in, week out to get to the Euros. And I just don't think this Villa side is the right side for him to do that.
I think you're right, Dan. It's hard. I think you have to drastically change the system and personnel to fit him in. If I'm being extremely optimistic, I think a narrow kind of midfield diamond that consists of Ali, Grealish, and Barkley is as good a midfield as any. It's just you have to fit Dougie in, you have to fit Super John McGinn in. El Ghazi is undroppable. Bertrand Traore is just the sauciest man we've seen in the longest time. Undroppable. Again, Watkins, undroppable. It's really difficult, because I was having this debate with my dad the other day. Villa have to sign someone in January. We are two games in hand. If you win both of them, you're second in the league. You make a statement by going out and signing a Renato Sanchez type player. And I say type player because, of course, he's on his way to Liverpool, as you guys did remind us. But to have a good season, to somehow, if it's possible, breach the top six. A marquee signing in January for me, absolutely crucial, Dan. Whether it's Dele Alli or not, I don't think it is. But Dan, we have a very interesting player next, and he's one who I've had to do a little bit of research while I was on my break today about. But I know he's a player who you're certainly well versed with, a player who has been dubbed by Wiseman Football as the next Xabi Alonso, the heir to that throne, as good as it gets for the number 6 in Spain. Dan, talk us through our next player.
Yeah, so this is a little welcome to Marc Roca, who's a player that, you didn't really have to give the story behind Dele Alli because everyone knows who he is. But Marc Roca is a player that, unless you sort of follow La Liga, his profile has grown recently with his move to Bayern Munich, but not too many people are familiar with. And I know it's pretty crazy to be linking a player to Villa who, as I said, has just made a recent move to Bayern Munich. But I'll fill you in as to why it's a possibility in a little later on. But with Marc, we all know that Catalonia is a beautiful, fertile breeding ground for centre midfielders.
It really is.
You only have to look. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. But the difference with Marc Roca is that this one went to the second biggest club in Catalonia, Espanyol. He didn't sign for Barcelona. He went to Espanyol, made his way up through the youth ranks there, and has made his debut aged 20 in 2016. And Espanyol at that time were a side in the upping that they were finishing 7th or 8th in the league. And he played for them for 4 years, made 121 appearances, made a name for himself as this next, as Busquets is declining for Spain, that Marc Roca was to be the heir to that throne and finally alleviate Busquets in the national team and Barcelona and provide them with his replacement, essentially. Established himself as one of the better holding midfielders of that type in the world, despite being so young. And then he went to the under-21 Euros. And mate, I just want to, this is not really related, but Spain's squad, they won the 2019 Euros. Spain's squad, they took, I'm just going to focus. Mate, the midfield they took was Fabian Ruiz of Napoli, Carlos Soler, Mikel Merino, Dani Ceballos, Mikel Oyarzabal, Manu Vallejo, Igor Zubeldia, Alfonso Pedrera, Marc Roca, and Pablo Fornals to an
Wow.
under-21 tournament.
I mean, that's not fair, surely.
Are
Surely.
you
You had me
joking?
going a few times there. When you said Ceballos, I was like, man, he's 26.
It's crazy. And they went to the end and unsurprisingly won that tournament. And Marc Roca, in the semi-finals, they beat France 4-1. Marc Roca scored in that game. He was just electric. Then in comes last season, and Espanyol, not a good. They actually finished bottom of La Liga. They were relegated to the Segunda for the first time in 26 years. But they were in the Europa League. They reached the Europa League knockouts, and for those the memorable fans amongst you, that they actually played Wolves in Wolves' run. They beat Wolves 3-0, I think, in one game. Or they lost 6-3 on aggregate in that tie. It was a crazy game. Espanyol get relegated, and he's picked up by Bayern Munich. He goes to Bayern, and this is the ilk of the player that we're talking about. He goes to Bayern for a relatively cut price fee, but that's because of Espanyol's relegation. And Bayern Munich need that player. There's been a sort of lingering nostalgia for Xabi Alonso, who played there and gave some of his better years to Bayern Munich. They haven't really managed to replace him. He's been taken under the wing of Xabi Martinez, but hasn't really established himself in that Bayern Munich side. And there's no harm in that. You only have to look at the midfielders that they've got now. That David Alaba plays in midfield. I mean, Joshua Kimmich, despite being primarily a right back,
what a player,
is one of the better holding midfielders in the world. You then have to look at the chances that they've given to the likes of Jamal Musiala as well this year in midfield. And so Marc Roca hasn't made too many appearances. He's only played twice in the Bundesliga, played once in the German Cup. In his first ever Champions League start, he was sent off for 2 bookable offences against Red Bull Salzburg. And so it's been a slightly tumultuous start to his Bayern Munich. And so this is where, despite joining Bayern Munich 6 months ago, finally get around to the Villa side. It's like, I think Bayern Munich would be open for a loan.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
No, take it down. Take it.
I mean, just in some brief research, I've found. I mean, again, this is a player that Dan is much more well versed in. But looking at the stats, it reads nicely, and it looks like he would make a delightful double pivot partner to our main man, Dougie Luiz, if he was to stay. If not, I mean, potential replacement. Who knows? But again, I mean, I think I've said this so many times. I feel like we're the Charmeleon in this evolution, right? This Dean Smith side, but we're yet to reach Charizard level, right? That is when the passing is fluid. It's one touch. That's when we evolve to Charizard, right? We're stuck in this Charmeleon phase, and passing it's not quite there in my opinion. It's not this vintage Dino, Warsaw, Brentford, quick one-touch passing, which is just to die for. It's the way that everyone wants to play. It really is. And of course, he fits that bill being a Spanish player. They're very tidy in possession, know how to pass the ball. You've just got to look at, the Spain side who won the World Cup. They, changed the game. Pep Guardiola has changed the game. But short pass completion rate in his career, 89.1%. Medium pass completion rate throughout his career, 87.4%. Long pass completion rate throughout his career, 73.5%. That's really important. Not only can he do the tidy stuff that's close quarters, Dan, which of course is a facet of Douglas Luiz's game that is brilliant. He's got the long range passes in his locker as well, albeit not as many completed are successful. But I mean, you can't be too picky. The high risk passes to still boast around 74% pass completion rate, Dan, for a long pass. That's remarkable, and I'm liking the sound of this player, Dan. You've opened my eyes to him. I wasn't necessarily too aware of the potential links, but after watching some footage, after having a little investigation, I think he's a player that would most certainly improve Villa leaps and bounds again. But it brings it back to the point I made earlier. Who does he come in at the expense of?
Well, it's a difficult one, and I think what he provides is, as you talked about, he has all those passing ranges, but there's an element to Marc Roca that, because he's Spanish, because everyone sees, everyone's pinned him from very early on these Xabi Alonso, Sergio Busquets comparisons. He's 6'6". He's joined Bayern, And we all know what Bayern do to their players. They walk in and they come out looking like Popeye, man. Like after his it's like they come out absolutely huge. He's 6 foot, and he's going through Bayern. He's trying to put weight on. He's spoken about this. He can put out some real fires back in defence. You know, he puts himself about. He's not afraid to do the dirty work. And to boast those passing stats, as you said, mate, playing for a team like Espanyol, who finished bottom of La Liga last season, is quite the achievement. And so it's difficult to say who he comes in for. But, you know, if you're looking at alone and when Douglas Luiz was missing for those last few games, and it's, you know, there's a bit of recency bias here, of course, but we didn't look the same in midfield. We saw when he came in for that West Brom game how good he looked and how much better Villa look, how we're able to dictate the game. When we don't have Douglas Luiz, Marvelous Nakamba can break the play up, but he can't dictate the game the way that Douglas Luiz can. And I think Roca would give us that ability when we, you know, as you said, you can place them in a pivot, and that's actually perhaps better balanced than it is under McGinn. But he gives us that option when Douglas is out to have a player that can step in and dictate the games. And I think Bayern, given the weight that they have in midfield, as I said, you know, he's struggling to make the moves, struggling to make the appearances that Bayern want him to. And with a player, you can't stunt their development. At this age, they need to be playing consistently because he was captain of Espanyol. He's played a lot of games. He's now going to play none. They would be open to a loan deal, I think. And I think in January, if nothing changes in that landscape at Bayern Munich in the midfield and with the way that they're playing, I don't think it will. Because, you know, they only play that 4-2-3-1. There's only 2 spots in there. And when you're competing with the players that they are, there isn't really a way into that. You know,
that's a dream.
You have, especially when they've got Leon Goretzka to come back from injury as well. So yeah, There's definitely a spot for him to come out on loan. And I think the Premier League would be a good landing spot for him.
Hopefully, I mean, hopefully for you guys who potentially weren't aware of Marc Roca, as I wasn't necessarily before yesterday, have a bit more of an idea on how he plays. If you can, go and check out some highlights of him. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Obviously, we have to preface that note with all highlight reels. They can make anyone look good. They can make Dan and I look amazing, which of course we are. So trust them highlight reels. But an interesting potential acquisition there, Dan, and one that I most definitely like the sound of. So if you guys did enjoy this latest edition of the Transfer Rumour Mill over here at Heart of the Holte, please do hit the like button, comment your thoughts below on both Dele Alli and Marc Roca. Do you think we should sign these two? Do they excite you? Let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more, as we will be delivering the hottest transfer scoops from now until the end of January if Villa were to make a signing. So we'll be here also breaking down games. We've just done a preview as well with Hopkin Looking to Co on the one of the genuinely greatest football pages come podcasts that are around. So again, we'd just like to, if you haven't and it's before the Palace game, go have a look at that. If not, come visit it after the game as well and see if what Dan said was correct. We'd love to know. So yeah, as I say, if you enjoyed, hit the like button, comment your thoughts below, subscribe for more. Up the Villa.